welcome to the Motorcycle.com. What is this? Mid-size adventure, adult, kind of grown-up motorcycles. We got the Kawasaki Versys 650. We got the old standby Suzuki v-strom 650 and Honda NC 700X. 670cc parallel twin, 649 parallel twin in the Kawasaki. So they're actually all pretty much right in the ballpark with each other. Prices are all relatively close. So Sean Alexander, when he rode the Kawasaki at its intro the other day, pointed out that even though it's a mid-sized bike, the guy that buys that bike is an experienced guy, 40 years old or so. It's got rubber engine mounts up front now. The handlebar is also rubber mounted, so the thing runs really smooth. The old Versys maybe sometimes had a little bit of a buzz in the fairing at certain RPM. They tuned that out, so it's a sweet cruising machine now. The Suzuki's been around since 2012, basically unchanged. It's a nice motorcycle. The Honda's been around since 2013, right?
Well, you got to be careful, John, when you bring up Sean Alexander's name in the same sentence with the Kawasaki Versys, because according to that guy, this is the greatest motorcycle ever built. They have, definitely made improvements to the Versys over the old model. The remarkable thing is the way it sits, it is actually $500 less than the v-strom 650 sitting next to it. This engine's been around for a long time. It's paid for its tooling years ago. This should be the more affordable bike here, but it's not. Actually, the most affordable one is the Honda, about $7,500, and we've definitely come to the conclusion on this review, as well as previous reviews, that the Honda makes one hell of a fine around-town urban commuter.
It's pretty cool, mostly because of it. You can get optional saddlebags on the Suzuki and the Kawasaki, and you can get optional ones for the Honda too, but you don't really need them most of the time because of that beautiful trunk it's got where the gas tank ought to be, which is really a fantastic feature to me.
Yeah, none of these other bikes have a trunk as is. And to get the saddlebags, you're going up $700, I think, on the Versys to get the saddlebags with this.
The Versys with bags, and it would come with handguards. It would be called the Versys LT, and then you would be looking at a list price of $86.99, Tom. So you get the Kawasaki with bags for only like $100 more than the Suzuki without bags.
And then to get bags onto Suzuki, you got to jump up to the Adventure model, which runs about $10,000.
It's like $10,000 when you go for the Adventure model of the Suzuki. Both of those kind of make the Honda look really attractive if you don't want to carry much stuff, just a little bit. But I kind of think the Kawasaki feels like it's the sportiest of this trio. What do you think?
So yeah, from a sporting perspective, the Versys, in my opinion, is probably the most sporty of the bunch. To me, it's pretty easy to flick around from side to side, although that's, strangely enough, closely rivaled by the Honda here. I feel like I'm closest to the front of the bike when I sit on it, kind of sporty-like. And so when I'm going through the twistier stuff, I can hustle around easier than the Honda, and especially the Suzuki. The Suzuki is kind of hampered by its big front tire. It's slower to turn than the Kawasaki and the Honda, and it just feels kind of skittish with that off-road-ish front tire and rear tire.
Which actually might make it a little bit better if you actually wanted to adventure a little bit off-road. This one might be kind of closer to being an off-road bike than the other two with the big front wheel.
When you're talking about going off-roading, I think it's fair to say all three of these bikes are rarely, if ever, going to see any kind of off-road use.
We should say dirt road more than off-road.
Right, and with the Suzuki's oil filter sticking out the way it does, it's so, vulnerable to a rock or getting smashed super easily.
You certainly have to put some skid plates on it and stuff, but I've seen guys that can ride a thing like this off-road pretty good though.
Yeah, going back to, say, commuter duty, the Kawasaki's seat, to me, is the most comfortable. It's the most well-padded. It's well-suited for all kinds of stuff. Has the easiest adjustable windscreen. You can just turn some knobs and move it up and down. The other two bikes here, you need to take a wrench and loosen some bolts and move the screen in positions and then tighten it all back together again. I guess we should talk about the hearts of these things, the engines. You've got parallel twins in the Kawasaki and the Honda, and what is it now? It's the 16-year-old V-twin in the Suzuki. The Suzuki has character because of that SV650 engine from 16 years ago. It's a great little power plant, really smooth throttle response. It's one of those lovable engines, but it's got that V-twin syndrome where you have to shift it all the time to keep it in the power band. Whereas with the Kawasaki, you can really rev it out on any kind of road and you don't need to shift as often. And then you have the Honda with a really low rev ceiling. And so just when you think you're getting in the meat of the power band, you've hit redline, you're like, oh crap, I gotta shift again.
The Honda though, around town, don't notice it. You know, the short shifting thing, it's great because that's all you're doing is getting from stoplight to stoplight, going to and fro, you know, whatever you're out doing. And plus, a huge advantage is the fuel underneath the seat.
Underneath the seat.
It makes that thing feel so lightweight compared to these other two top-heavy beasts over here.
That's the really important advantage of that bike that we left out. It gets like 60 plus miles to a gallon, I guess.
Excellent.
And
Excellent
that's
MPGs.
that's 15 or 20 more than the other two.
As long as you're using the Honda in the urban environment, I don't think you're going to really have too much negative to say about it. It's only when you get out here and you start putting it through, you know, sporty
mode,
stuff, right? With these
chasing
guys,
each other up and down the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, even the Suzuki with the bigger wheel is a more performance-ready motorcycle than the Honda.
The thing that's nice about the NC2 is the dual clutch transmission version, which also comes with ABS. That only bumps the price up by $600. So that's only about $8,100 with a dual clutch. And then it's really a great around town bike because then you don't even have to shift. You can just use the dual clutch and twist and go. It's like a scooter at that point, although you can shift it manually too with the thumb buttons. If it was me, I'd probably go with the NC, but the Versys, they really did a good job.
Probably the best of both worlds is going to be the Versys because it has the sportability. It's not bad around town. It doesn't have the storage that the Honda has. It doesn't have the front wheel that the Suzuki has, but you know, yeah, I mean, if most of these are taken in sort of a dirt road type of situation, I could pretty much take this bike anywhere I could take that bike.
Probably so.
Well, I know for me, as a former SV650 owner and racer, the Suzuki v-strom here should be my odds-on favorite. But with that price, I just can't quite justify it over the Honda and the Kawasaki. Between the Honda and the Kawi, which one would I pick? That I'll have to go back home and really think about some more, because...
Bust out the scorecard?
Exactly.
I don't know. I'm not as leaning towards the Honda. I think it's too one-sided of a motorcycle. Like I said, it's an around-town urban commuter bike, but I would not take that any type of long distance. I wouldn't come up here in the canyons with it. I just wouldn't enjoy that motorcycle as much as I would these other two in terms of an all-around composure. So it's a little too narrowly focused for me. So mine would actually come down between these two, and then a little bit of a determination between, do I want to do some more fire road riding, what the Suzuki would be better at? But then you throw the price tag in. Yeah, I probably answered my own question right there. I'd probably be going with the Versys on this one.
Well, then you probably don't have to read the story of Moët next week. Never mind. Now we haven't made up our mind yet. You have to read the full story of Moët. The full test will be up probably a bit before this video's up, huh? They'll be up at the same time. Read all about it on Motorcycle.com.